Hey everybody, good morning. It's Monday, June 3rd, and this is Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia. Our topic today is retaining staff, the human element. Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia is brought to you by Rogue Tulips Consulting. We focus only on 501c organizations, and we are also a proud supporter of the 501c League. So thank you for joining us today. I am Cecilia Sepp. And there's Agnes. I am Cecilia Sepp. I'm the principal and founder of Rogue Tulips Consulting. And this is my friend and colleague, Agnes Amos Coleman. Agnes, would you like to say something? Agnes?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Cecilia. I'm Agnes Amos Coleman. I'm a consultant. I'm also an author, and I'm a co-host with Cecilia. Over to you, Cecilia.
Great. Thanks, Agnes. And as you can see, folks, we had a little bit of a delay there because we are still pursuing our international theme. Agnes is still coming to us from Nigeria in the city of Abuja, and I am just recently back from Australia, so I really was on the other side of the world. They call it the land down under, so I guess home is the land of up over is how I came to think of it. We're back, and we're happy. We took Memorial Day week off for the holiday weekend, and today we're here to talk about retaining staff, the human element. And this subject was suggested by Agnes, and she has some great comments she'd like to make. So we're going to start off with Agnes.
Thanks, Cecilia. In the business environment, particularly 501c non-for-profit organizations, the motivator, the human element, it's always what's in it for me. And I think it's just the way we are as human beings. You know, we all want to do a good job with our organizations, or we want to do well, but we also want something in return. And some of the things that we're going to talk about here today is what I and you and other people who work for 501c association or non-for-profit are looking for in return. Because you have to remember, Cecilia, most 501c and non-for-profits they don't pay well. It's not the structure, but there is something that they could give in return to their employees. And those are the kind of discussions that you and I are going to have today.
Yes. And that's I think that's really a great point. One of the examples I thought of as I was considering this topic was not everybody realizes this. Agnes and I used to work together at another association, and that's how we met, and we maintained our professional relationship after we both left. I was CEO at that organization, and Agnes was director of certification. And Agnes came to me one day and said, I need time to work my writing. So what can we do about my schedule? I would like to request a compressed 4-day schedule. And so that would mean, I think we all know what that is, but just for those people who may not, a compressed schedule means you do maybe 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. And then you can take a day off. Well, it's not really a day off, but you have that day to do other things. And so Agnes came to me and said, I'd like to do that. I said, well, I don't see why not, because it was a virtual organization, so it was very easy to do. I also think it would have been very easy to do if we all went to the office, though. And so we made that arrangement. And so Agnes was like, great, I can pursue my other professional interests, because the organization is a very small organization, very small budget, and cannot even provide a lot of benefits other than paid vacation and paid sick leave. So that was one thing we could do for Agnes. That's what was in it for Agnes. And it was a very easy, responsive thing to do. And I think it comes from being a leader who treats people like the professional grown-ups they are. And I think, to me, and kind of getting a little off topic, but I think this is how you retain staff, is realizing the difference between being a leader and a manager. And a leader lets people do their jobs. A leader helps people do their jobs. A leader doesn't manage people. They don't say, did you do this? Did you do that? And hang over them. Some people do need to be managed, but most senior people need to be led. And I think even people with less experience want to be led. And that's part of that human element of that. And so the other human element of that is I went to the rest of the team and I said, hey, Agnes had this great idea about compressed work weeks. If anybody else wants to do it, let me know. But you can't all take the same day, because you can't leave me here by myself on any day of the week. So we didn't have anybody else take us up on it, but they appreciated the option. And I think it was because one of the other things we'll let people do is basically do split shifts, because most of the people on the team had children. And so they would get up really early in the morning and do some work, do all their things in the early part of the day with the kids, like getting them to school and things like that. And then they'd work some more. And then the kids would come home from school, and then it's help the kids with homework, do dinner, maybe do some housework or whatever else they might need to do, or go to the ball game with the kids. And then they'd work again very late at night. Like some people were working 10
That's,
o'clock at night.
Cecilia, that's a classic
So,
example of what you just described. Thank you for sharing that feedback, actually. And even though nobody took you up on that offer, you also have to understand that allowing them to be flexible and take their children to school and come back when it's needed, it's actually part of what's in it for them. Because as an association, you recognize that, as a leader of an association, you recognize that financially I'm not able to give them what they're looking for in another organization, or what other organizations would pay for, but you were able to be flexible with their time, and they kind of worked out what's in it for them that would make them successful in their role. And that's really what 501c leaders needs to be thinking about when they're looking and when they're working with their teams. It's not always about the money. It's about, how can I be successful in this role as a leader, and how can I make my team be successful, and been very, very flexible. I have another example of another organization that would offer luncheon vouchers, to their staff, that they would go out and buy food with, and they give it to them once a month. So they have a voucher for the whole month that help them offset the cost of lunches. So it's little things like that that employees are really beginning to appreciate, that really allows them to be able to be productive within their business environment and within the 501c organizations that they work with. But you've pretty much summed it up by giving that classic example of how we worked in that association. And I think it's just a wonderful example that other organizations and 501c would benefit from.
oh, well, thanks, Agnes. Because a lot of that started with you. Although I did always have this attitude of, I want to treat people the way I would like to be treated, and I would like to be treated like a grown-up professional person who can let you know what I need when I need it. And I think that's really a lot of the retaining staff, the element. A lot of what we try to do at Rogue Tulips is to be very forward thinking, be very 21st century. We're a virtual organization where Agnes and I are the core consultants, but we have identified a network of other professionals within the consulting space for associations who bring different areas of expertise. So if we're doing a bigger project, or we want to expand the scope of a project, we have these identified people that we know that can come in and work with us on these projects. And I think that living in that 21st century world with that hybrid opportunity, you, even if you are still going to an office, a physical location, you can give people that flexibility of the hybrid work style. So we talk a lot about hybrid organizations, but if we want to retain staff and keep that human element, we have to look at the fact that humans don't always get to control their schedule. Life happens, pipes burst, dogs get sick, kids get sick, people die, you have to go to a funeral. But the way the world is now, as long as the technology infrastructure doesn't collapse, we can work from anywhere. And I think that if we have a hybrid approach to scheduling and a hybrid approach to letting people do what they need to do in the whole rest of their life, we would have that life balance that we're looking at. And I think that that will help retain staff, because I think anybody who knows me or has ever had this conversation with me knows I hate the term work-life balance, because it makes it sound like you have two lives. Well, here's the work life and here's the other life, and I gotta try. No, they're not parallel. They're the same. They're this. They're not this. They're this. So they're connected. So you're getting up in the morning and maybe you're making breakfast for the kids or feeding the dogs, but you're thinking about what you have to do at work, and then maybe you're checking your phone to see if you have an email. I know I do that quite a lot. I'm always like, in the morning, first thing I do is read BBC News, and then I check my email on my phone while I'm doing other stuff around the house. So keeping that in mind, that human element, I love that example of giving people a lunch voucher too, because food, it nourishes the body, but I think showing people we care nourishes their soul. And if you nourish
Sure
their
does.
soul, it nourishes their outlook. I mean, what do you think about that?
Totally agree. I think that's, it's a holistic view, Cecilia. I think that that's what we need to look at when we look at the human element. And I think we've talked about a lot of that this afternoon. It's really taking that holistic view of your employees within the 501c non-for-profit organization. And that holistic view looks at, the physical element, the emotional element, the spiritual element, as well as the financial element. So you're really looking at that person or that employee holistically, as far as what they, what's in it for them holistically. And that's how they can be better employees that continue to deliver results for the bottom line. And as leaders within 501c non-for-profit organizations, that should be
Uh-oh.
our goal.
Okay, we're having a little trouble with Agnes's connection.
How do we recruit? I can hear you.
Okay, good. You're kind of buffering a lot, so you're kind of freezing at
Okay.
some points.
Okay. So
So we
my
didn't get
point.
any of what you just said, basically.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if you want to repeat it.
Okay. You will change, you'll fix it, right? When you do the editing, right?
I can't fix it because it's recording the buffering. So could you,
Okay.
we have 4 minutes left. Could you repeat that very quickly, what you just said before?
What I was saying was that, we need to look at a holistic view of our employees as leaders within non-for-profit associations, how we can engage them within the workplace to make sure that we offer them, this quality of life that would allow them to be better employees for us as leaders, so that we can deliver results for our, to the bottom line, because that's really what we're here to do as non-for-profit associations. And as leaders, that's what we need to be encouraging.
I think that's a great way to summarize it. Because we need to address that people are human. There's more to them than work. There's more to them than just, did you get this project done? People are very complex organisms, and I think if we approach them that way, it's the way that you're going to get that higher performance. People are going to feel like, I do want to come to work. They do care. They notice if I'm here. They notice if I'm not here. It's like a great example. We have like 2 minutes left. When I used to work at the American Academy of Otolaryngology, I was very focused because I was only the second person to have the job I had. And I was in kind of an odd situation because people didn't quite understand what I was doing working with the Board of Governors. Now that changed and everybody really gets it, and that's great. But I would just walk into people's office and start talking about work. I would just say, hey, I need to talk to you about this work thing. And then finally, somebody looked at me one day and said, well, hello, Cecilia, how are you? I'm fine. And I looked at them and I said, I'm being rude, aren't I? Yes, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. You do this to everybody. And people talk about it. And I said, I didn't even realize it. I said, because I'm just like trying to come in. I don't want to take people's time. I'm trying to I said, but you're right. So after that, I made a point of recognizing the humanity of my coworkers and saying, hello, how are you? What's going on? Is this a good time to talk? I just have a quick question. And so I've really always retained that lesson because somebody took the time to tell me. And I think that's part of the human element. Take the time to tell people, what's going on. Take the time to say, hey, most of the time people don't realize they're doing it because they're caught up in their own thoughts. So there's another human element. If you have a staff person who's maybe not being polite, or people are saying things like, oh, they're so rude, they just come in and start talking, have that conversation with them and say, did you realize you're doing it? Because we all have things like, we all have our verbal habits. For example, I describe a lot of things as little. Like I'll say, oh, I just saw the cutest little house or the cutest little car or this little thing, and this is a verbal habit I have. So, oh, and there goes my dog with those verbal habits. So, yeah, so folks, we got like 1 minute left here. So, Agnes, do you have any other thoughts you'd like to add?
I think those have been very interesting insights for our viewers. And I just encourage us to, as association leaders, 501c leaders, we don't always have to pay the big bucks, but we can always, we know that what's under our control is that we can help support, our employees to be the best that they can be by taking a holistic view of their lives and what would make them a better employees. I think we've pretty much covered what needs to be said, but there's an opportunity for us as leaders to lead the way in our 501c organizations.
Great. Well, thank you, Agnes. And like Agnes and I always say, take 15 minutes and talk to somebody. You might learn something. So thanks again, Agnes, and we will be back next week with another topic. So goodbye for now.